So yes, I think as everyone sort of starts to come in, then the numbers are going up anyway. So I'll just say good afternoon to everyone and welcome to today's webinar Wednesday. So this webinar today will be held in collaboration with the ICAEW. So before we start, both Caitlin Griffin from the OR Society and Ian Pay from the ICAEW, they're just going to both give a bit of an introduction about the OR Society and the ICAEW. Just for those that might just not be as familiar with both organisations. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Caitlin to start. If you just want to do a brief intro about the OR Society.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Emma. Welcome everyone to this December webinar. This webinar is hosted, so it's in partnership with the OR Society and the ICAEW. So welcome. Just a little bit of background on the OR Society, if it's a new term or you may not have heard about us directly. We're the home of science and art of problem solving. That's what we believe that we do. It's the home of operational research and analytics. We're a member-led organisation, so supporting operational researchers across industry, academia, offering a variety of events across the charity sector within these areas. I guess to sort of name a few outside of OR, so our events and training cover like analytics, AI, systems thinking, health systems, simulation. That's just to name a few, and those words will probably be more known than what is operational research, which is the question that we always get asked. And this year we're actually celebrating our 75th anniversary at the Society. There's a lot of different things happening in terms of events, training, membership. We have new publications launching. So yeah, if you want any further information, feel free to get in touch with myself, with Emma. And yeah, thanks again for joining, and I'll pass over to Ian.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Welcome, everybody. So my name is Ian Pay. I'm Head of Data Analytics and Tech at ICAEW. Realise I'm saying those letters quite a lot, and it's probably worth me explaining a little bit about who we are for those who aren't familiar. So I'm just going to very quickly share my screen just for a couple of very short slides. It's just loading. There we go. So who is the ICAEW? We are the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. We were established in 1880 by Royal Charter. We have over 200,000 members and students globally. Around a quarter of those are outside of the UK. Our qualification to be a chartered accountant, the ACA, is world recognized as one of the leading professional qualifications, and it's a really significant undertaking, and very, very highly valued by professionals in the accounting space. We also act as a regulator for accounting and audit firms in the UK. All of the world's 100 global leading brands employ ICAEW chartered accountants. So we do have quite a broad reach. We have a number of faculties, we have a number of communities, and we also have a lot of regional and international groups as well. We're also very involved in sustainability. We support the UN Global Goals for Sustainable Development, and we have a team actually at COP this week engaging the accounting industry on all things sustainability and climate change. A very quick plug for the ICAEW data analytics community, which is one of the communities that I look after and are kind of co-hosting this webinar with the OR Society. It is our largest community. We've got over 35,000 members. We have quarterly newsletters. We have articles. We do webinars roughly once a month, sometimes a little bit more. We have quite a large on-demand archive as well, and we also get involved with events. We are very, very excited about some of our plans for 2024 that we're sort of putting into place at the moment, and some of those plans are involving working very closely with the OR Society, so it should be a great year next year. We do also have a data analytics certificate that if you're part of the analytics community, you can we often sort of run discounts to sign up to that. The community is completely free to join for anyone, ICAEW member or not ICAEW member. So if you're interested in signing up, just go to icw.com/join-DAC or scan the QR code on the screen now. I'll put it on again at the end of the webinar if you want to join us and find out more. But for this webinar, we're going to be talking about low and no code opportunities. What we're going to be doing is exploring how Grant Thornton, it's one of the larger accounting firms in the UK, have looked to implement a low code solution and roll it out across their entire workforce. So with me today, I've got Jamie Crossman-Smith from Grant Thornton, and we've also got Kilian Thiel, who is from NIME, which is the tool that GT have been rolling out. So I'll hand over to Jamie and Kilian in a second, but just before I do, very quickly to say that if you would like to ask us any questions throughout this webinar, please do. We're very open to questions, and we'll try and sort of pick them up as we go along or answer them at the end of the webinar. And please use the Q&A function to ask those questions, and we'll get through as many questions as we can as the webinar progresses. So yes, over to you, Jamie. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass to Jamie, who's going to take you through his presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're all
see
good.
My screen? Fantastic. My name's Jamie Crossman-Smith. I'm a managing director here at GT. Let me try and move this on. Next. There we go. That's good. So a little bit out of date. I've got a 15-year and well, nearly a 20-year career now in audit and data-driven risk management, mainly in banking. I've done lots of things over the years. I started off in external audit. Sorry, accountants got bored by that quite quickly, and then moved to internal audit, which everybody told me was the dark side, but it's not true. It's really fascinating. And then I got involved in analytics because I realized, having an analytics degree originally, there's a better way to do things. So when I was in external audit, I started off in the audit commission, and my first day I was asked to test some journals. And to test those journals, I had to go and get a file off the shelf, I had to open it up, and I had to tick them all off, all the numbers off and the signatures and stuff like that. And I thought, there's got to be a better way for this. Why can't I just get information out of the ledger system and just analyze it? And I found out there was. So I joined Deloitte, and I've never really looked back. I've been at Grant Thornton now for 6 years. My doctoral thesis is in mid-market, enabling mid-market firms to take advantage of digital transformation. That's something I'm really passionate in. I'm just about to be appointed visiting fellow at Manchester Metropolitan University. Another passion of mine is making sure that we get academia involved in consultancy to bridge the gap between academia and industry. Because why? It's great going to consulting firms to get advice. Please do. That's why we're here. But it's also great to wheel in the people who've done the research and understand it and can really help you with this cutting edge stuff, especially at the moment with what's going on in the world of AI. So it's nice to meet you all. So I'm now a reformed and recovering internal auditor. So talk a little bit about Grant Thornton. I'm going to talk a little bit about low code and why that's important. I'm going to hand over to Kilian from NIME, who's going to talk about NIME as a low code example. Then I'm going to talk about it from my leadership perspective and how we've made it happen at GT, and then we'll take any questions. Those of you that don't know Grant Thornton, we're the 6th, 7th biggest accountancy firm in the world. I think it changes every few months. There's loads of us around the world in a ton of countries, and we help our clients in so many different ways. And we've got very strong, clear values: collaboration, leadership, excellence, agility, respect, and responsibility, which underpins everything that we do. And we have a strong focus on inclusion and diversity. And diversity is really important. I'm actually going to talk about that because that is really key to getting an analytics and digital strategy right. So when I started off in audit, internal audit, this was about 15 years ago, the next big thing was always going to be analytics, right? Analytics was going to take the world by storm. You know, Enron had happened. Everybody wanted more assurance, didn't want to pay so much for internal auditors, wanted a great level of assurance, wanted to do it more quickly and cheaply. Analytics is the way forward. Fast forward 15 years, I go and talk to clients today, and I'm still saying the same things. The big banks and the big insurers and the big organizations have piles of money and can do lots of great stuff with analytics and can get the best people from the best universities with the best backgrounds and the best skills. Smaller firms don't necessarily have that advantage. So they're still taking a lot of care of a lot of manual processes. And the question is, how do we get them to adopt analytics? And that's just in the audit world. We help dozens of finance functions in small and medium enterprises automate what they do, because their equivalent isn't obviously automating the audit process. It's getting rid of spreadsheets. So it's taken, you know, doing reconciliations where you have to slice and dice and cut data and you get it wrong, and then your transaction volumes go through the roof, and you find that that one person who does those reconciliations can't cope anymore. It's the same solution, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the conundrum is that everybody knows that digital and data is the right thing to do, but it never really happens. Why is that? Well, in the accountancy profession, whether you're on the finance side or the audit side, you've got a lot of domain knowledge, but not necessarily so much digital knowledge. There's time required to upskill, there's money required to invest in tools, and the short-term pain, right? We're working with a large global restaurant company at the moment who are implementing an analytics tool to automate some of their finance functions. And it's really tough for them at the moment because we're building those workflows for them. We're letting them loose with the finance community. They're struggling to understand it. We're winning them over. We're helping them. But there's a short-term barrier there because things don't happen as regimented as and as quickly as you'd expect. Also, you've got to attract the right people, right? So I've worked with some of the biggest banks in the world. Everybody's clamoring with their CVs to work there. Nobody really wants to go to a trading estate in Slough and work for a small firm on less money. So you've got to work hard to get the right people, and that's not easy either. And then you've got to get senior buy-in, right? And that is also sometimes the toughest thing to do. If you're in an organization, I'm making money, I've got the day job to do, and analytics, what's that going to give me in the short term? How's that going to impact my quarterly numbers? How's that going to impact my annual numbers? And it's the same thing whether you're in an accountancy practice or you're in a firm. The problems are exactly the same, and it's a conundrum. And the worry is that you're going to get left behind, especially the smaller firms. So how did Grant Thornton tackle it? Because we're just like you. We're just like you whether you're a corporate, or we're just like you whether you're just an accountancy firm on the phone today. We've focused on two tools. There's always the next shiny tool that comes out. Truth is, what you want is something that's easy to use and isn't going to cost the earth, right? People get behind. Everybody has Microsoft, right? Everybody's paying for it, and it can do an immense amount of stuff. In a combo between Nime and Microsoft, we recently created a tool that allows you just to bulk open invoices, scan all the information, pull it out, put in an Excel spreadsheet. As a combination of the two. The AI behind that is available in Microsoft already. There's so much stuff available to you there. It's not just Excel and Word on your desktop. There's so much more. And then, of course, today, the subject of today, we're going to talk about a journey with Nime. Can you do a lot of this stuff with spreadsheets? Yeah. Is it horrible? Do people understand it? Does it open you up to a whole lot of risk? Does it give you the opportunity to do some of the more advanced stuff like machine learning? No. Is it repeatable? If your key people were going to get sadly, knocked over by a bus tomorrow, would you be able to open up that spreadsheet and run all your processes? No. And that's where Nime comes in, and that makes it really easy for us. But I'll let Kilian talk more about the benefits and the features of Nime in a moment. So we've talked about this terminology, low code. And so what is low code? Well, it winds me up a little bit, and you're gonna feel my middle-aged rat across most of this presentation today. University, I have to write code. I have to learn how to do math, and I have to learn out code, right? And there's some code that I wrote just the other week, some R script on the top. It's not easy. So if I want to do analytics, I have to write code, and you got to get the dots, you got to get the syntax in the right place, the equal signs in the right place, and it quite often goes wrong, and it's easy to mess it up, and it takes hours to debug. and it's really, really hard to do, right? Low code takes that all away. It allows you to draw a picture. So there is a workflow below based in NIME. So if I want to open an Excel spreadsheet, I don't have to write a command, a line of code to open an Excel spreadsheet and read from it. I just drag the box in. And again, Kilian will show you more about that in a moment, but it makes it visually intuitive. So if I was doing a reconciliation, say for in finance, I've got this horrible complicated spreadsheet that's full of formulas. How does that thing work? How does that data get from A to B in that spreadsheet? How does it suck through? How do I know the formulas right, etc.? It's really hard to do. You can see below on that workflow, it's really visually intuitive. It follows the data. So I import the data, and then the arrow goes to the next step that I do stuff with the data. And then maybe I send my data off in two directions to do two different things or split it. And the arrow will show you that. So you can actually follow the process that you're undertaking with tools like NIME, and there's others out there, great tools like Alteryx, for example, that do allow you to do this. So they democratize development, right? They put it in the hands of domain specialists. And that's what has been the big difference for us at GT. Now, the main drawback to no-code platforms is that while they can reduce shadow IT, they also pave the way for it. So as an internal auditor, I spent many, many years picking up the pieces on broken Excel spreadsheets and EUCs that had gone wrong, and then big banks had published the wrong numbers to regulators, and we had to go and fix it and understand where it had gone wrong. Takes away all of that. But actually, should some of this stuff be given to IT to build in a production environment? Possibly, but it's a nice halfway house. And not everybody has that luxury. So it allows you to put more control around what you do and make it easier, while at the same time reducing some of those errors and not necessarily relying on the IT function so much. And it also speeds up development. Okay, writing code is time consuming. Getting it right is time consuming. Testing it is time consuming. Testing and writing code means experts. Low code allows you to democratize it and send it into your auditor, your accountant population. So it allows things to become a lot more efficient, a lot more quick. Okay. Simple example, we worked with an education provider who wanted to work out where they were going to spend their marketing budget. They had loads of coffees, loads of meetings trying to figure it out. I said, give us the data, we'll run it through using NIME, build some machine learning models, use those machine learning models just to work out where the highest flow through was from leads into essentially sales into their private school. We did it. We did it in about 2 hours. No more meetings, no more discussions, no more theory, data-driven, evidence-based backing for their marketing budget going forward. And that's where low-code analytics really becomes important. So which low-code analytics platform should you pick? The truth is, you've got to pick one that works for you. You've got to get one that makes it easy for your population that are going to use it to understand, right? So for many years, I was a big fan of, say, for example, ACL and IDEA, two common data analytics platforms in the audit space. But to get the most out of them, you had to write code. The licenses were expensive. So everybody would, in the internal audit space, would have every so often, let's do data analytics. So they'll go and buy a ton of these licenses, train everybody up, and then find once they've trained everybody up, it's like, yeah, let's go do it on our audit, and then they'll forget it. And then it would just be left me with a bill to pay and a load of licenses that are never used. So you've got to pick the platform that works for you. And there's loads of good ones out there. You could use Power BI, you could use Tableau, you could use NIME, you could use Alteryx, you could use umpteen different ones out there. But you've got to pick the one that's right for you. Think about it in 4 areas. The functionality that it provides, whether it's scalable. The last thing you want to do is to have something that works on your small population of data, but when you start ramping loads of data through it, it starts to fall down. Think about Excel spreadsheets, for example, in that. Got to appeal to the user base. You've got to be able to use it easily. And the cost is also really important. So there's 2 reasons why we focused on NIME within Grant Thornton. Number 1 is the cost. I'm Northern. Anybody who knows a good English Northerner will know, Yorkshireman will know that we don't like spending money. And NIME is open source. NIME Desktop is open source anyway, so we can give it to everybody for free. Now, that causes a little bit of angst when we go and talk to clients, and it caused us some concern when we spoke to our IT department about allowing NIME across our firm, but we got comfortable with it. So I just want to explain a little bit about open source software, because firstly, R, Python are open source. They're tools that everybody already uses. Maybe your technologists haven't really understood it. So free is exactly what it says on the tin. Free code is free. It's given by a developer to you. You can't see it though. They're just not charging you for it. Question to me is, why would they do that? And I think people get that confused with open source. But open source is different. Yes, it's free, but the difference is it's a community-built software. So you can see and you can edit the code if you wanted to. I could go and get NIME's code off GitHub, for example, and edit it if I wanted to do. Now, people have concerns about that because they say, well, I can see the code. I can see where it's vulnerable. Two things. Nobody in this world is going to go and scan 15,000 lines, 15 zillion lines of code to work out where the errors are, right? The people that do stuff like that tend to be very nice, and they actually publish them straight away. So this, and then they tell organizations that publish open source code, actually, I found a vulnerability, and you fix it. If you buy a piece of software off the shelf, you don't have that access. It could be the worst software under the hood possible. It's so vulnerable, you wouldn't believe it. You're not going to know that, but you've got the comfort of paying for it. By paying for it, you think you've got a right of approach because you can sue them if it goes wrong. But open source is a bit like a glass lock, a glass padlock. I can have the best padlock in the world. I can see that it's the best padlock in the world. I can see that I can't put a screwdriver in and pick it. It's brilliant. What's my alternative? A brass padlock, or I can't see in it. I'm assuming it's the best thing in the world, but what happens if I put a screwdriver in it and pick it? So that is how we got comfortable with open source. And one of the other concerns with open source, of course, is there's no support. If you buy a license off the shelf, you often find that you've got people there to support you and answer your questions. We found NIME quite helpful anyway. But there's also a huge community. So there's a huge community out there of people who are willing to share hints and tips and give you support as you go along. So you don't pay for it in the license, but you pay for it in the way that the other NIME users and the other open source users love their software. So without a second thought, I'm going to hand over to Kilian now from NIME to tell you a little bit more about the software.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, happy to take over here. My name is Kilian Thiel. I'm located in Berlin, Germany. I'm working for NIME and I'm responsible for the strategic partnerships at NIME. I'm working very closely with Jamie and the GTUK team on all NIME related things as part of our partnership. And I think one thing that Jamie didn't mention besides the community that is there also to help you if you want to get started using NIME, that we have also lots of partners who can help you in your NIME journey. For example, Grant Thornton UK, they have lots of NIME expertise. They have their NIME experts who can help you with onboarding, with support, with your projects and all that kind of things. I will give you a quick NIME introduction today, very high level. First, I'm going to show you a couple of slides to get everyone on the same page to explain a little bit what NIME is. And then I'll show a very high level a demo of NIME so that you see how NIME looks like, how you, for example, can build a workflow. And if you have any questions, can be technical questions, any other questions, I'm happy to take them at the end of the session. And with that, I will start sharing my screen. Hoping that you can see my screen now. Going to the presentation mode and start with a very high level NIME introduction. We see NIME as an end-to-end data science platform, complete data science platform. And what we mean by that, I will cover in the next couple of minutes. With end-to-end, we mean basically, there is data in, and this can come from various sources, can be an Excel file, can be from databases, can be data in the cloud, wherever your data sits, and this can be multiple sources. first you need to get your data into KNIME or into the process basically. And then at the other end, there are results out. Those results, they can be, this can be, for example, again, cleaned data. This can be predictive models. It can be predictions. It can be dashboards, visualizations, whatever your results might be. And then in the middle, there are all sorts of more or less complicated and complex steps that needs to be done from your data to the results. Of course, this first starts with accessing the data, blending the data, transforming, preparing it, maybe visualizing, and then in the end also deploying and monitoring the results or predictive models or whatever it is, basically dashboards. And all of these steps can be done with KNIME. Basically with KNIME workflows. This is what you see here is a KNIME workflow. A KNIME workflow is assembled of different nodes, and I'll show you later on in the demo how those nodes can be, or how a workflow can be created and those nodes can be assembled together. I already mentioned with KNIME you can access really many data sources. We have over 300 connector nodes that allow you to connect to over 300 data sources. This can be Excel files, can be databases, can be CRM systems like Salesforce, can be ERP systems, and you name it. So there are many connector nodes, and you can get data imported into KNIME from a huge variety of data sources. And on the other end, the results, this can be interactive dashboards. You might just want to send data to Power BI and do the reporting and visualization in Power BI, or maybe you want to create a data set that then will be stored in an Excel file or pushed back to a database, something like that. And all of these things, all of those results can be then deployed in various ways. This is what we mean with end-to-end. And with complete, there is a huge variety of functionalities that are available in KNIME. You can do basic analytics, you can do data science, you can build predictive models, use machine learning. You can even process and manipulate advanced data structures like textual data, image data, audio data, and things like that. All of this can be done in a visual low-code, no-code way. As you can see here, there's a screenshot of a KNIME workflow, but you can also include Python or R scripts if you like. If you are kind of an advanced data scientist that can code and script, you can also use Python and R code. And of course, you can leverage many external tools or systems out there like distributed systems, cloud execution, and so on. Here is, again, a screenshot of a workflow, and a workflow is assembled of different nodes. Every node performs a specific operation on the data. This can be reading data from a file, can be joining together two data sets, can be transforming data in various ways. And by connecting those nodes, you define how the data is basically flowing or will flow through your workflow and how the data will be processed step by step by every single node in your workflow. And this is basically how you visually create your solution, how you visually code your solution by using those building blocks.
And actually, just to chip in on this, because this is something, because I've in my role, in my previous roles, I've had experience of implementing low-code solutions in organizations, and this idea of nodes is a really interesting one, because actually conceptually at first, if you're especially coming from a data science or a data analytics background, you kind of, the idea of nodes can be quite tricky, because you really have to think at very granular level, like small steps. So actually, I mean, what you've got on screen here is some quite large flows, and it's sort of not being afraid of the fact that actually you might have a lot of nodes in a workflow, but that's okay, because it's breaking down every single task in a very kind of granular way. So there is a lot of visibility of what is happening at every single step. But initially, that concept of, oh, I need to have I need to have one step to select particular fields, and then you have another step to summarize my data, and I need to have another step to join my data. And actually, realizing that each of those things is a separate node initially is a little bit of it's a little bit of a daunting concept for sort of data specialists.
I think if I may add as well, I think that's a really good point, Ian. But what's the alternative? If you want to get people involved, the alternative is to write code, and you've got to learn how to write code. And for each node, there'll be multiple lines of code that are very hard to understand, and especially if you're replacing a spreadsheet, for example, there's multiple complicated formulas. I can have a look at this and I can pretty much figure out what each box is doing just from its name. And that's what makes it a lot easier.
And I think that ties actually into a question that Vivek has asked around sort of the explainability challenge. And I think for me, this is much more explainable than giving someone a script that's doing the same thing, because you can sort of see what's happening, you can see the flow, you can, and you know, there's lots of other best practice things around adding annotations and comments and these sorts of things to help articulate what's happening at each step. So I would say this is much more explainable than your traditional analytic, which would be, you know, written in a programming language that may or may not be familiar to the person who's ultimately got to review it or use the output of it.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree. You can basically read every single node and understand what's happening there. You can quickly get an idea of what the workflow is doing, which data sources are imported, data from which sources are imported, how the data prep is done, for example, which data sets are joined and things like that. And you can visually see this in a second. Basically, by reading through code, you would need much longer. Also, from a development perspective, when you build a workflow step by step, and after every single node, you can basically stop, you can configure the node, execute the node, and then you can inspect the results after that node, and you can quickly see, okay, are these the results that I expect at this point, or do I need to change anything? Am I using the right operation, or do I need to change the parameters a bit to come to a specific result? So also the development of those workflows step by step makes it easy to understand, am I on the wrong way basically, or on the right way, and am I producing the results that I want to?
And again, if one of those nodes is a more sort of advanced node around doing some machine learning or predictive capability, then those nodes are also, you can, you know, there's a transparency in terms of some of the logic that's happening within those nodes. So you can, if you need to dig to that level of detail, you can, in a way that, again, a traditional scripting piece might be, it'll be there somewhere in the 500 lines of code, but good luck trying to find it.
Absolutely. And the fun really starts if you're taking over an existing script from someone else that has been maybe written or coded a couple of months or a year ago, which is badly documented, and you need to take over the script, then have fun, understanding what's going on there. This can be really tricky. Taking an existing workflow from someone is usually much easier to understand. There is also a way of annotating the workflow, more or less like commenting code, but in a visual way, of course, so that you can quickly understand and see what's going on in the workflow. Okay, I'll continue with the slides, and there are just a few slides left, and then I'll switch over to the demo. A few words about the technology ecosystem. We're always trying to be very open. We at KNIME, not just open source with the KNIME Analytics platform, but also open in terms of being integrative and allowing to integrate and to connect with existing existing technology ecosystem. This starts, of course, with the data sources. So there are many connector nodes available that allow you to import data from various sources. Of course, this is key. If you are doing analysis, you need to get your data from somewhere. But then this also includes, for example, visualization and reporting. We do provide functionalities for visualization and reporting in KNIME, but you can also use existing tools like Power BI or Tableau or Spotfire or many other tools. You can also write data back to your Excel files, for example, if you want to do some reports and some nice visualizations in Excel. This is also possible. So you can connect KNIME very much with your existing technology ecosystem and leverage what's already there, or extend KNIME in a way that you can even basically utilize much more functionalities than that is just available within KNIME. When we're talking about KNIME, usually we mean the KNIME analytics platform, and Jamie mentioned it. This is the open source part. This is the client tool. If you want to start doing something with KNIME, if you want to build your own workflows, you need the KNIME analytics platform. It's free and open source. You can go to the website, download it, and start building, start creating. There is also a commercial piece. It's the KNIME Business Hub. Usually, if larger organizations or enterprises start to use KNIME heavily, like Grant Thornton UK, they have, I think now over 800 KNIME users, then the KNIME Business Hub makes a lot of sense for those organizations, because this is the place where you can, it's like a central KNIME platform in an organization. Teams and individuals can collaborate there, they can share workflows so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel over and over again. You can deploy solutions in a safe, controlled, and governable environment, which is also kind of secure and checked by IT. You can schedule solutions there, and you can make solutions available to the business users. The demo that I'm showing is just focusing on the KNIME Business Hub, on the KNIME Analytics platform, on the open source tool, that you get an idea how this looks. And this is what I will do now. I stop the slides and switch over to the KNIME Analytics platform. Here's a workflow that I created, and I'll quickly show you in a second what this workflow is doing. Before I do that, I'll create a new empty workflow just to show you how you would usually start a new project. And I do this with creating a new workflow. I can give it a name, my demo. And what you can see here is now this project has been created. It's empty, so I need to populate it with nodes or operators. In a first step, I'll use the Excel reader node. I have some data available in an Excel file. To do that, I just drag and drop this node over here, and then you can see the node will show up in the workflow. Every node has a traffic light here. Usually, if you pull in the node the first time, it's red. This means it needs to be configured. Configured means you can click on that button here, and then a dialog will show up. Every node can be configured, which means you can specify parameters for each node so that the node knows what it's supposed to do. An Excel reader reads an Excel file, and of course an Excel file needs to be defined by a file path to that Excel file. So what you can do now is you can browse to that Excel file. I'll do it a bit differently. I have an Excel file already prepared here. I will just drag and drop that Excel file over, and you can see the Excel reader is kind of created here in the workflow, and it's already pre-configured with the right path and some settings about how to read that Excel file. I'll click OK. You can see this node is now yellow. This means it's been configured properly, and now I can execute it. And I just click on play, execute the node, and the execution of a node simply means that the node is now doing what it's supposed to do. In this case, the Excel reader reads the Excel file, and it makes the data available at the output port of the node. If you click on the node, you see that little black triangle. I can take this later on and connect a new node. But for now, I'm just taking a look at the data that is available at the output port of the node. You can see this here at the bottom. You can see the node where the data consists of 9 columns and over 221,000 rows, all imported from that Excel file. This is a data set about Olympic Games. I think back to 1920, every Olympic Games and every participant in an Olympic game, these are Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics, have been recorded here. You can see there is a name there is then, of course, the edition of the Olympic Games, the country for which this person participated here, the sport, if this person won a medal or not, if this is a team sport, if this person is female or male, and the date of birth of this person. So this is the data set. It's an example data set. Obviously, you can import your own data. This can be credit card transaction data, can be customer data, product data, data from ERP systems, payroll data, whatever your data is from which sources you import your data. Of course, it will look differently, but here, for the sake of this demonstration, I'm using this data set here. In the next step, what you can do is now you can simply search for the operations or the nodes that you want to apply. For example, you can now use a row filter node to filter the data set. In this case, I'm kind of filtering and I'm trying to extract all the individuals that won a medal. So I'm filtering based on the medal column here. Now the resulting data set is over 31,000 data rows. This means we have over 31,000 winners, basically. I could also do a quick count comparing the medal winners and non-medal winners. I do this using a group by. We're grouping on the medal column, and I'm doing a quick count here just to see the statistics. You can quickly see here that we have over 31,000 medal winners versus over 190,000 non-medal winners. And those type of things you can quickly do with the data. You can see a list of all the available nodes here. This is the node repository, and you can scroll down. There are many, many nodes available. There are over 3,000 nodes available. If you know the name, or if you want to do a specific operation like filtering, you can search for filters, and then you can find all the filter information. For example, if you want to chart something like a pie chart, you can type it in the search box here and then find a pie chart. For example, here, what I'm doing now is I'm grouping based on the medal winners based on the country. For example, here we see that the US basically won the most medals back to 1920, I think. This is the former Soviet Union, so this is quite historic data that is a part of the data set here. And then you can quickly create a nice pie chart, for example. So by using the nodes, you can drag and drop those nodes in your workflow, connecting them, and then performing the specific operation on the data that you like.
Just to chip in very quickly, because Aftab has asked a question which might be quite interesting. People, hopefully a quick one, is when NIME is importing the data, where is that data stored?
A good question. Yeah. So the import happens here. When this node is executed, the node will read data into NIME. The data is held in memory, but we have kind of a buffered data structure. If the data doesn't fit in your main memory, it will be buffered on your hard disk. The buffering will be in a binary file. If you want to store data to, for example, another Excel file or a database or wherever you want to store your data, you need to do that with another node. For example, you can take the data here, you can write this data or maybe the filter data set here to another Excel file. You can configure that, specify a file name, execute it, and then the data will be written to this Excel file or will be written to a database or will be stored on the cloud or whatever. This depends then on the type of writer or connector node that you're using here. And here in between, the data will be held in main memory in NIME or will be buffered to hard disk if the data doesn't fit in the main memory.
Great, thank you for that. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries, all good. Good. Okay, so I The next thing I wanted to show you is a workflow that I already prepared. So I think you now have an idea how you can create a workflow. And the challenge, if you are starting to use KNIME, the challenge will be not how to configure the nodes. You will quickly learn that. It's usually pretty easy to figure out how the configuration dialogues work, but the real challenge is to find the right nodes. If you know what kind of process you want to implement, you first need to think about what operations do I need for that on the data? Do I need a group by, a pivot, a filter, or whatever it is basically that you want to achieve? You first need to think about the operation that you need on the data, independent of the node or anything, really just the operation that you need to perform on the data. Or you can also build predictive models, for example. And then the second challenge, once you know which operation you want to perform, to find the right node for that. Usually the names are pretty logically. If you want to do a group by, you search for group by, and then you find the group by node to do that a kind of operation. If you want to do a join, you just type in join here, and then you will find the joiner node. It takes 2 inputs, and then okay, you need to connect now 2 inputs to join those 2 data sets together. But this is usually the main challenge. Which node do I need to use to perform the specific operation on the data? Some things are pretty obvious, like grouping, joining, and so on. Some things might be not that obvious, and you can also go to the KNIME forum if you have any questions, forum.knime.com, or you reach out to someone from KNIME, or you connect, for example, to Jamie and the team and ask them if you need any advice. So there are various ways of learning that, and yeah, I think that's the real challenge about KNIME if you want to get started. Then maybe one last thing. Here is a workflow that I prepared just to show you kind of what's possible with that data set, and really just scratching the surface here. What we did is, again, this is the Olympics data here. What you can do is you can take this name and split the first name and the last name, and you can then do a count, for example, here, based on the first name, like how many we have here. In this case, we have 183 Johns that won a medal. The next most frequent first name of medal winners is Kim, then Alexander, and so on. So you can do this by just using just a couple of nodes, or, for example, here something a bit more advanced. We extracted the year. Here the medal probabilities, the probabilities of winning a medal if you are a female or a male, has been calculated for every year, and then these probabilities have been plotted from 1920 to 2020. The blue line are the females. If you're a female participator in the Olympic Games, then your winning probability is a little bit higher than if you're a male. And these are just a few things that you can do. What you see here, and this is the last thing that I want to mention, is a component. If you have a component is basically encapsulating more or less complex steps in your process in this gray box. So if you have more or less complex ETL workflows or ETL functionalities, or whatever it is basically that you want to encapsulate, you can do this. You can select those. You can, for example, here create a meta node or a component. I will quickly do this, and then you can give it a name, for example, data prep, or whatever it is, whatever is happening there. And then your complexity is hidden in that meta node. And you can also share this on the KNIME Hub with others, and make your life and the life of others easier if you make your work basically available also to others. Yeah. With that, I'm giving back to Jamie, and happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Kilian. Let me go back to my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see a screen.
You see that now?
Yeah.
Is that good? All right, fantastic. Thanks, Kilian. Really useful. So I'm conscious I've got 10 minutes left, so I'll fly through this. We are now 10 months into our low-code analytics journey. We've gone from 0 to 800 users in a pool of 5,000. That's the number that I use quite a lot. But if I'm honest, we've got about 200 people that are now using this day to day, have really grasped this. But we've got 800 downloads. And that's actually an important number, not just because it shows a really big number in its traction, but it's people who have actually taken an interest in this. They realize that actually there's an analytical way to solve their problems. So actually they become the top of the funnel for bringing in analytics work to our team. And it's not just a new tool for us, it's a transformation in culture. So this is attached to automation as far as we're concerned, and spreadsheet replacement. Flipping on a couple. So how did we make that happen within GT? Well, it's quite simple. Solving the digital conundrum, as we mentioned earlier, it's about people, not tech. And me and my team have had to become salespeople to sell this to our firm. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's 3 types of digital leader you're probably going to come across in everyday life. There's the promoter genius. Well, they're the really clever people who get there and know everything that needs to be done, but don't necessarily have the face time with the senior management and the people across your organization to make it happen. You've got the project managers who are great at making things happen, make quick decisions, but don't really understand what they're doing, and don't understand the tech. And then you've got the volunteer, the people who want to do it, but might not necessarily have all the skills that they need. Truth is, and I think within my team, we've got all 3 across a number of different people. So I've taken the word buy out of this because I want you to realize it is selling, essentially. What my team do is sell this internally. We sell this internally to allow people to adopt digital change. How do we do that? Firstly, they've got to relate to your vision and product. If we started thinking, well, actually, you know what? If I put this capability, give everybody a name and give everybody a team of experts in my team who can use it and solve their problems, and just leave it there, they will come. Never happened. So we quickly had to go on the front foot and get out there and go and talk to people and pound that ground as if we're salespeople, essentially. And the message was important. So Simon Sinek says always start with why. You've got to give people a vision to get behind. You know what? This is important to the firm because it's going to help us reduce margin, increase productivity. It's going to be better outcomes for our clients, better quality. Get people bought into that vision of why we're doing it, then how you're going to do it, then what you're going to do, rather than start with what you're going to do, right? And make sure your team is clear on that. As with any sales job, we've got to relate to you and your team, right? So you've got to employ people who can go out there, talk to people, build up that rapport and that relationship. Knowing your customer is absolutely and utterly critical. To know your customer, you've got to give them a designated point of contact, and you've got to make sure those relationship managers know that part of the business inside out and that they're there to be a friend, right? I've got a problem. And you give them agnostic advice, sometimes bringing in the analytics angle. The most important bit that I've found is hiring diverse teams. That is really, really important. Get people from a broad range of backgrounds with different life skills, different experiences. They bring different ways to solve problems. Matthew Syed's book is right. And he said one of the main reasons the CIA didn't realize 9/11 was going to happen was because they hired all the same people from all the same universities, who listened to all the same professors and thought it could never happen. Right? Bring in diverse people. You get diverse perspective. As a leader, you can pick from the right ones. You get different ideas to solve problems. It's fantastic. In terms of your team, when does success happen, right? So there was an academic paper written in 1969 by a guy called Rogers, The Diffusion of Innovation Model. And he said in any organization, the tipping point is 18%. Once you've got 18% of your organization along on a journey with you, standing up and championing you, the rest will follow. It won't be as fast, but they'll follow. You're over the worst. We're not quite at 18%. You can see that from our numbers, but we're a long way from zero. We're getting there. And so the first people you've got to influence are the innovators. Get in with the people who are willing to take risks. Not the steady eddies, the people who are willing to actually, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. My numbers might be bumpy creating this month's numbers, but you know what, we'll give it a whirl because it might be better in the long run. The early adopters, the ones who've seen the innovators, seen the benefits, seen the successes, and then are willing to give that a chance once they've had that little bit of security. You're never going to win everybody around. There's always going to be the laggards, and eventually they'll be, you know, we're in performance territory once the rest of the firm has come along that way, and we're in that, come on, you can do it, and are you the right person for the job? But getting to that 18% is key. Start with your quick wins. Start with the people who are going to listen to you and be interested. Don't try and win the whole firm over. Start with the people who are going to get this and then be your champions, your ambassadors. So how do you grow a successful digital initiative? Well, it's quite simple. You've got to be a salesperson. You've got to get people's attention. You've got to get their interest from that attention. You've got to get them to want your digital solution. You've got to get them, you've got to give them a reason to want, in our case, NIME. It's going to make their life easier. It's going to automate what they do. It's going to mean they're not doing rubbish work anymore. It's going to mean they're not, you know, spending until 9, 10 o'clock at night doing messing on in spreadsheets. And then once they get that, they'll go for some positive action. So with a few minutes to go, first things last, 10 top tips from me. Take them as you want. For me, what I've learned over the last few years is there's no such thing as a digital strategy. What there is a corporate strategy and how you can fit into that. Forget it being about you. There's so many leaders I've met where it's kind of like, it's me, it's my team, I'm brilliant. It's not. It's about the impact that you have and the success cases you have and how you enable people in your business to be better than you and your team and the people in it. You do that, people will go along with you a lot more. They won't come to your door. They won't knock at it. You've got to go and pound that ground. We're looking more and more towards productization. So actually, what am I doing for one client that I can do more, I'm doing across multiple clients, and therefore how can I industrialize that and make it easier? That's certainly thought for the future. And a couple of other things on the next best thing. Over the years to come, and over the years previously, you're going to have loads of people who will come up with the next big buzzword for data mesh, data fabric, or all the sort of things that with the young kids now. Truth is, I'm still doing data analytics. I was the same way I was 20 years ago. The tools have changed, the principles have changed a little bit, but the basics are all exactly the same. You know, understand the basics and you can't go wrong, right? Don't get blindsided by the next whizzy dizzy tool that's out there. And for me, it's, you know, viva la open source revolution. The best things in life are free, right? Working together is great. You know, NIME has a fantastic community that are willing to share what they've found and they've learned, and we've benefited from that no end. So it's good to give. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And we do have quite a few questions, but I'm also aware of the time that we're probably not going to have a chat. And probably quite a few of the questions actually are kind of geared around this kind of how you manage some of the risks of open source, you know, changes of code, but also how you manage version control of workflows, reviews. I know there's been a few different discussions on these topics, but what we're going to do in the interest of time is we'll take these questions away, share them with Jamie and Kilian, and we'll put together a bit of an article which we'll put on the OR Society and we'll put on the ICW website, just unpicking all of these questions. I think hopefully it's been a really interesting presentation. And yeah, just to echo what Jamie just said as well, you know, the technology landscape moves on really, really quickly, and it's not a reason to not do something. You have to just take the step. And yeah, what the solution that you use now might not be the solution that you use in 5 years' time, but that's the way of technology. You have to kind of just embrace it. So go for it. And, you know, as Jamie said, the advantage of open source tools is that you've not had that cost investment that you might lose a few years down the line. You've been able to do something fairly quickly, fairly cheaply now that you can sort of make use of until the next big thing comes along, maybe, or maybe not. So just to say thank you very much to Jamie and to Kilian for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you to the OR Society for hosting this webinar with ICAW. I hope it's been really interesting. And again, there's a link in the chat if you want to do any more of the OR Society webinars. We've also got the ICAW, icw.com/join-DAC. If you would like to hear more about what we're doing in the data analytics community at the ICAW, again, it's completely free for anyone to join. Don't have to be an ICAW member. I think I can say Merry Christmas. We're in December now, so wishing you all the best for the Christmas period and a Happy New Year, and we'll hopefully see many of you again in 2024. Thank you very much.